Thank you so much, Tolu, for that insightful discourse right there in our Abuja Network studios. And of course, we're back here in Lagos, the city of excellence. And of course, today being the 20th day of February 2025, we will be looking at a very important issue about the Kano crisis. My name is Joshua once again, and of course, I have my guest here with me who will be taking us through that discussion. Of course, you know very well that before the Kano crisis occurred, there has been an aftermath of the N11bn governance protest that led to the crisis that took place in Kano State, where no fewer than 10 persons unfortunately lost their life in that struggle, and of course, properties belonging to both private and public owners to the tune of 11 billion naira was destroyed. Now, the point is that we're going to be looking at the cause of this particular issue before we look at other things that will come during the course of this discussion. And as I said earlier, I have with me, joining me right here in the studio, in the person of Hassan Taiwo Soweto. He is a socialist and, of course, a national spokesperson, Youth Right Campaign, YRC. Good morning, Mr. Hassan, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
All right, just as I said earlier, we will be looking at the protest in itself, the N11bn governance protest, because there is no effect without a cause. Now, what in your view led to the protest in the first place, the N11bn governance protest, which took place on August 1st, 2024?
Yeah, thank you very much. The N11bn governance protest from August 1st to 10 last year was in all respect, a sign of the frustration and anger of the entire population of Nigeria, most importantly, the young people, the working class, and the poor masses who were feeling so frustrated by how terrible the economy was going, especially because of the removal of fuel subsidy by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu on May 29, 2023. That singular economic measure led to a number of dislocation in the economy, and in that regard, it also had negative consequences for people's livelihood. For instance, we had the fuel price skyrocket, from about 170 naira or thereabout to over 800, 900 as at that time. Now it's over 1,000 naira per liter. And alongside that, you also had the increment in electricity tariff as at that period. And because of this critical hike, in both fuel and electricity price, you had inflation cascading across all other sectors of goods and services, especially consumer goods like food, stuff, and all of that went up. Their prices went up. So inevitably, that created a condition of very terrible hardship for the vast majority of the population. People were starving, and alongside all of this, you also had a collapse in the value of the naira because the government also, started a program of trying to bring, what did they call it? Reduce the gap between the official value of the naira to the dollars and what they call a black market rate, which was essentially a policy of devaluing the naira. And that led obviously to a collapse in the value of the naira, which also meant a collapse, in the value of the income, that average people, were earning, which meant that those who were earning, maybe 100,000 naira salary prior to May 29, 2023, by the time of the protest last year, the value of their salary was more or less about 50% of the former value, which is a colossal drop, in any colossal drop in the value of in the cost of living. So these were the situations that led to that protest. So the protest was a response to the very terrible situation And you could see that right even from how the protest itself came about. Ahead of the protest, you could see that there was a determination by the people that, irrespective of what threat that the government and its supporters within society were trying to put out there to prevent the protest was happening, people felt that they had to come out, because not coming out itself, the consequence of that was greater than whatever would happen to them, by coming out. That really was the main factor that drove that very marvelous movement that we had for 10 days in August 2024.
All right. Now, you've given us a background as to what precipitated this move. We're going to be seeing video clips as regards how the security agents came into play, especially with what happened in Kano State. But then, before we get to that, your organization, because I know very much that you have been part and parcel of this movement. So what have you done in your capacity to be able to mobilize people, considering the economic situation that you narrated before you hit the street?
Well, I mean, we had been on the street even prior to August. Many would not remember this. Twice in February last year, we're out. We're out, I think, on February 26th. On the platform of the Joint Action Front in a protest that held in Lagos State primarily. And then a day or 2 days after, we were out with the Nigerian Labour Congress on the 2-day protest that was called, I think, against the increment of electricity tariff, also in February. Then on June 12th, we also were out on a protest to raise issues about the the high cost of living that was already the case as at that time. So prior to August, we were already out, so that when the call for a 10 days protest came in July, which was something that came from social media, we could say that we were already prepared. And that was why our role was to see how we could give flesh to this idea. And one of the things we did was to bring together all the key civil society organizations.
So where was your converging point?
Our converging point in Lagos was Ikeja under bridge. But prior to that, we had a press conference, I think on July 30. I'm not good with date, but it was few days to August 1st itself. And I think that press conference played a major role, because for those who could still remember, prior to August 1st, while the whole idea of a protest was already very loud on social media, people were also asking, who are the people leading this? We want to see faces. So that it wasn't actually very sure and certain that anything was going to happen on August 1st, given the fact that those who were leading the protest were not going to come out to openly say we are the ones. And I think that our press conference helped to give a lot of push to that, because the press conference, one, revealed that there was people who were prepared to put their neck out, to lead the protest. It announced a date, a place of convergence, and also a time. And I think the conversation changed from that, because it meant that for those who wanted to really come out, they could see people that they could have some confidence in. And I think that was very, very important. But that didn't actually make things any easy anyway, because I remember that even on that first day, the environment across Lagos was so hot that you would think that the protest was not going to happen. A day before, the soldiers and the police are already taking over the street, doing drills on the road. And on the day itself, early in the morning, you could see band of thugs at every street corners. In fact, what we had was that nothing less than 500 million naira or thereabout was spent, by the Lagos state government, as well as other individuals within the ruling party, to try and mobilize people on the street, their party members and thugs, so that right there on the street, the idea was to start to stop people who they suspect of going towards.
You just made a very huge and heavy allegation that 500 million was put or earmarked for that particular project to make sure that thugs were mobilized. Is that what you're saying? Can you substantiate that? Because this is national TV. If it's not something you can substantiate, perhaps you have to.
Well,
retract that statement?
I cannot retract because it's what happened. But
do you have a statement to back it up?
The reality is that those who gave out the money and those who collected it, they know themselves. Don't forget that we were out there at Ojota and we could see the people who were paid, who actually came to do their jobs. The thugs were harmed. Some of our people were also, beaten and wounded in the course of the 10 days protest at Tojota by those that are immobilized by this money. So
okay, now you've been able to establish a point, especially what happened in Lagos, and I believe you understand that whoever alleges, the onion is on you to substantiate, to prove beyond reasonable doubt that funds were actually made available by the government, as you said, to be able to mobilize TOG, to infiltrate your movement so as not to allow you carry it out. While we are yet to get on that, we're going to watch a video right about now, because we're going straight to what happened in Kano, the dastard act that happened in Kano, which brought about the coroner inquest by the governor in the person of Governor Kabir Yusuf. Let's watch this video. Now, we've seen what happened in Kano State, where the law enforcement agents were seen moving into the crowd. Perhaps these were seen as people who were moving about peacefully, expressing their grievance. Now, a coroner inquest has been instituted by the governor in the person of Mr. Kabir Yusuf, and that coroner inquest lasted for 6 months. Having a chairman in the person of Justice Lawan Wada, a retired person, what is your take as regards when a coroner inquest has been instituted, taking into cognizance what happened in Lagos, the NSAS protest, so to speak, that happened in Lekki, and we saw what played out after the coroner inquest, lasted, where there was, as it led, nobody was killed. But thereafter, we saw about 103 persons who were given mass burial. What is your take as regards police involvement when it comes to peaceful protests, and putting aside, side by side, the issue of coroner inquest instituted by the governor? Because in a statement, the governor also said that he was not going to be a part or influencing that particular exercise from carrying out, because we know what that means. But let's get your perspective on it.
Well, I think what is happening in Kano State is unique. Kano State is possibly, I'm not sure now, the only state that has decided to have an investigation into what happened during the protest in August. Even at the federal level, there's no plan, to do that. However, it is difficult to begin to talk about the procedure itself without seeing the report, because the report is not yet out, it's not yet available to us within the civil society organizations. We still have our members in Kano State yesterday. If they are seeing it, they are not yet seen it. So that we do not want to speculate about what exactly is the intention behind this, or the objective of this investigation, because investigations have different objectives. And then investigations can also have a positive objective, and then you have a situation whereby you have a government that wants to bury the truth. That was what happened with the judicial inquest here in Lagos State over the NSAS protest about 5 years ago now. Actually, the panel returned very damning evidence I mean, evidence that demonstrated very clearly, that there were killings. People were killed, and also identified military officers and policemen who were directly responsible for this. But then, by the time the Lagos State government received that report, they protested the findings of the report, and then decided to do a white paper. We then cherry-picked the reports and approved the ones the state government felt they was acceptable to them, while the ones that clearly indicted the state government, indicted the army, indicted the police, over that massacre, they completely, refused to approve it. In fact, the panel in Lagos, the judicial panel, actually has that the Lekki toll gate should be named, after the materials of that struggle, so that that is an example. We don't know what the case is with the Kano. However, we also have and it's the example already that we can look at, because when you say that inquest or investigation took 6 months, it's a bit surprising to me, because Amnesty International, within a space of 2 months or 3 months after the protest, had already carried out an investigation, which in every respect, brought out findings that, for every one of us who participated in that protest, they are objective findings that nobody can contest. In fact, in the case of Kano State, the Amnesty International report found that at least 12 people were killed in Kano State. The international report stated areas where those killings took place.
10 people were killed, but now you're saying 12.
I'm talking about Amnesty International.
Okay.
That the Amnesty International report, which came out in November last year, so that the inquest by the Kano State government, which has taken 6 months, is saying 10. Well, there's not so much divergence. But what I'm saying, therefore, is that from that point of view, we should expect that what should happen following this report would be for the state government to actually begin to take the appropriate measures in order to ensure that those who are directly responsible for these killings and mayhem are clearly prosecuted. And why I mentioned the Amnesty International report is this, because that's the only report I can comment on, since we don't have the full report of that inquest. The Amnesty International report did not only state where the killings in Kano took place, the local government, the streets, and the names of those who were killed, and the circumstances surrounding their death. The Amnesty International report also traced the dynamics of events, from how the protest in Kano State started as a peaceful protest, and when the violence and destruction started, and what precipitated it. And according to them, and I think that the clips that we just saw now was part of the evidence that the Amnesty International reviewed. They said it was the moment when the police attacked protesters and shot at them that mayhem set in and destruction of property started. Where I'm going with this, therefore, is to say that we would expect that the Kano State government will not use this report to now begin to harass innocent Kano protesters who went to the protest simply to express their grievance against a state of affairs that was not palatable for anyone. But rather, we expect that the Kano State government will utilize this report to actually go after the police authorities and other non-state actors who actually played roles in instigating violence, in inciting people to violence, and even in carrying out violence by themselves. Many CSOs in Kano State have spoken about the fact that it was not only the police that were actively attacking protesters during the protest. They also talked about how bands of thugs were utilized. And we have the same example in Lagos State. We have similar example in Abuja. So that if you are looking for those who destroy properties, those are the kind of people we expect that the Kano State government will go after. Because from the video we even have here, from the Amnesty International report, it is very clear where the mayhem started from, where the violence started from. Because what is likely going to happen, and what we have seen in the past before, is that government will utilize this kind of report to begin to witch hunt innocent people and put them in prison. Because thousands of people, over 1,000 people thereabout, were arrested in Kano during the period of the protest, and most of them were released after a while. But despite that, a number of activists in Kano are still being persecuted up to today. In fact, on September 30 or 31st, I can't remember which one, last year, about 6 of the leading activists in Kano State, including Abdulmajid Daudu and co, were arrested by, I think, the DSS and flown to Abuja. In fact, we are currently in court, on a suit to fight. I mean, to demand for respect, to enforce their fundamental human rights, to sue the police over that, so that we hope that this report will not now be an additional weapon by the state to further harass innocent activists. What we expect the state to use this to do is to place the blame for this violence and the destruction where it rightly belongs, and also to ensure that there is adequate compensation for those who have lost properties. Because we must recognize that many private people who have lost properties in this protest, they are not the enemies of protesters. They are not the enemies of anybody who are grievance against the government. They are just, unfortunately, caught in the middle. We demand that all goods lost to them, all properties lost to them, must be returned. And those who have died, there must be adequate compensation to their families and their relatives. Those who are injured, that the state government has not yet fully paid their hospital bills or taken care of their needs, because it's not just injury that should be treated. Many of these people, after their experience with the attack, with their injury, with the hospitalization, are also suffering from psychological issues. So we also expect that there will be psychosocial support for this layer of victims. Those are the kind of restitutive measures that the state government, we expect them to take, instead of using this report. Again, like I said earlier, it is difficult to make any concrete comment on the report itself since we have not seen it.
All right, so while you have established that fact, we're still going to apply or tread carefully so that we don't sound prejudicial even before the report is out. But given what you just said, citing the Amnesty International report, and of course the video we just watched, you realize that the police is not going to be completely exonerated from the mayhem that we saw carrying out in Kano State, because we saw people moving around peacefully, carrying around branches and placards, expressing themselves peacefully before the police came in. And now taking it side by side with what you just said, that it was until police infiltrated them, started assaulting them before violence started. So if the Kano State government is saying that they're going to release the white paper, which in itself will give a total identification and unmasking the faces of who those individuals that carried out those dastard acts are we saying that while they are going to go after those guys, are the police going to be exonerated from all of this?
I mean, again, that's why I said it depends on what is the intention behind this. Is the intention to find the truth? And when the truth is found, regardless of what the truth is, to do what is necessary, to do what is required? Or is the idea behind this simply to just have an inquest in order to drive an agenda that protest is evil, protest is destruction of property, something which the Lagos State government, for instance, has been saying here. So it depends on what the intention is. However, you remember that the IG of police, since last year, has been steadfastly denying that his men played any negative role in the protest. In fact, when the Amnesty International report came out in November last year, the police asked Amnesty International to retract that report. Earlier this year in January, the police wrote to Amnesty International, giving them 7 days to tender a public apology. Otherwise, they will be prosecuted. In fact, we had to, civil society organization had to issue collective statements to demand that the hands of Amnesty International stop harassing them. So this is the kind of pushback that we have seen from the police. And while all this has been happening, it's not on record that either President Bola Ahmed Tinubu or the National Assembly saw it fit to call the IG to order. So what that therefore means, and this is where I'm going just to conclude on this answer, is that even if the state government has an intention of going after the police or whoever has committed these crimes, with what we have seen with the IGP and the backing that the police has for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and co, then what exactly would happen?
All right, so we're going to come back on this because the report is yet to be out. So I believe that when the report is out, we'll still invite you, and of course we know you are acknowledged, so that we can talk more on this. Thank you so much, Mr. Hassan Taiwo Soweto, socialist and the national spokesperson Youth Rights Campaign, for coming on the show today. Thank you so much for your time. So we'll be handing you over now to our Benin Network studio for the rest of the program. My name is Joshua Okata. Thank you so much for watching.